Hello and welcome to this video. In today's video, I thought it'd be fun to try doing a grayscale drawing. I started out with a sketch of a guy in a 3/4 view. I wanted him to be slightly looking down, and I wanted him to have shaggy hair that covered his eyes, mainly because I didn't want to draw his eyes. I tend to struggle with the facial features when I draw in a 3/4 view. So I was trying to find a way around that. However, the hair gave me a lot of trouble, mainly because I was not using a reference, so that hurt me because I didn't have a clear idea of what his hair was supposed to look like, and that resulted in this disaster. Eventually, I just gave up on the idea of the shaggy hair, and I grabbed an art book I have that covers manga hairstyles. I flipped through that, kind of searching for a reference of a shaggy hairstyle, but I came across a hairstyle that's a bit different, but I really liked it. So I decided to go with that kind of hairstyle rather than the shaggy looking hair. I struggle with the 3/4 views because the facial features tend to look really weird when I draw them, and I know that's mainly because I don't draw this view very often, and the only way to get better at it is to draw the view, but it's hard to motivate myself to actually draw it because I know I'm not gonna like the results all the time. I know that I was commenting in my last video about how a bunch of my chibis were all wearing jackets or hoodies, and so I mentioned that that's kind of a bad habit of mine, and I kind of did that again here. I was intentionally trying to draw him with just like a sweatshirt on. However, it just looked kind of boring, and he needed something a little more to just kind of make the drawing just a bit more interesting. So I decided to give him a hoodie. That was my solution to the problem. I think it worked this time, but I know I still need to break the habit of like drawing hoodies and jackets on all of my characters, or at least add a bit more variation in the types of jackets and hoodies they wear. So for the eyes, I had a lot of trouble just trying to get them to look right. And there's a lot of footage I cut out of working on the eyes and the mouth because I had to redraw them so many times because they just would not look right no matter what I tried. But eventually I got something that I'm kind of happy with. I don't love it, but I don't hate it, so you know, I'll take the win. So for the line art process, it was pretty simple. I just lowered the opacity of my sketch to about 4 to 10%, and I made a line art layer, and I just went over everything with my line art brush. I tend to just do one go with the line art, and I don't really thicken the lines all the time. However, this time I decided I wanted to try thickening the lines. I didn't include this footage, however, in the video because I felt like that would just make this a little too long and it'd just be going over the same thing. But I wanted to add like thicker, darker lines where the shadows would be and keep the lines by the light source a little thinner. I don't think I executed the thin lines very well because when I started thickening the sketch, I was like, it all kind of looks like it needs just a little more. Lately, I'm starting to think a little bit more about the line art. Not a ton, because line art's not my favorite. However, I've been thinking about what kind of line art I want to do for my comic. I have a story that I'm working on, and I want to illustrate it. And so this kind of made me think, what kind of line art would I want to do for my comics? Would I want like something with the same thickness everywhere, or would I want to have like thicker lines in certain spots? I don't know. I'm on the fence about it, but it could be fun to experiment with line art going forward and to just figure out like what kind of line art I would want for my comics and what kind of line art I want to use for illustrations or for my chibis. For filling in the line art, I decided to go with just a couple different values. I made the darkest value be his hair because I figured this guy would have black hair. The second darkest value is his hoodie. The mid values are his eye color and his skin color, and then the lightest values I picked were for his hood and for the whites of his eyes, which I don't remember what those are called at the moment. And from there I made a clipping mask over each layer, and I kept it set to normal. I didn't want to use multiply for this, and so I selected the value I had for his hair, and then I picked a bit of a darker value for the shading, and I just used a paintbrush to lay down where I wanted the shadows, and I used my watercolor brush to blend those out. It's been a while since I've rendered like this, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I think just the fact that this is just in grayscale took a bit of the stress out of it, because I wasn't having to worry about if the colors I picked for the shading would work, because I'm just working in values, so I don't even have to worry about the colors. And that was honestly kind of relaxing, and I kind of got lost in the rendering. Like, I didn't even realize how long it took me just because I was having so much fun with it. And I had a lot of fun with the highlights too, just getting to like pick it, and I was trying to make it like, looking back, I'm not entirely sure how bright the light source is. Like, as I look at the drawing when it's finished, I'm still not entirely sure how bright of a light source I was going for. I just kind of went with it, but I think it turned out really pretty. I had a blast rendering the skin though. Normally the skin isn't my favorite thing to render. It's honestly sometimes kind of boring to me or a little too hard that it just takes the fun out of it. But this time, it was fun to mess with the depth of the shading on the skin to try and create depth. Like by the eyes, I've recently been learning that it helps to kind of add some sort of shadow by the eyes to create that sense of depth, since it is a 2D art piece, but it just adds like that little bit of depth that was missing from my art before. And I really like it. Like, I'm gonna start implementing that kind of particular shadow in my art going forward, just because I think it added, I know I keep saying the word, it added depth. But yeah, it was a ton of fun to render the skin, and surprisingly, one of my least favorite things to render for this illustration was the eyes. Normally, I love to render the eyes. I love to add like this little bit of glow to them. I love to add color. But this time around, I didn't exactly love rendering them. It was kind of hard to do it with grayscale and to try and achieve that same kind of eye rendering that I normally do. So that was just something interesting, and I think because I didn't enjoy it, it kind of means I need to work on it. to figure out a better way to render the eyes in Grayscale. And then for the hoodie, I don't always enjoy rendering clothing. It was just kind of like, you could take it or leave it. Like, it was the last thing I rendered, so like I still enjoyed rendering it. It wasn't as fun as like rendering the hair and skin. Anyway, as a side note, when I was working on this drawing, I kept wanting to animate it. I wanted the hair to kind of move gently. I kind of wanted him to maybe blink a little. And I don't know, I wanted to animate it, and I still want to animate it, but I'm curious if any of you would want to see that as like a long form video to just show the process of animating this drawing, or if you just want to see a short of the animation, because I figure I'm gonna animate it anyway, but I just want to know if I should take the time to make it a video or just animate it off camera and post the animation on YouTube. So let me know in the comments below if you would like it as a long form video or just as a short. And for the background, I didn't actually have any plans for the background when I started this drawing. I just figured I'd kind of leave it blank, but leaving it blank didn't look good. It needed something more. So I messed around with a few Procreate brushes and I added just a couple of clouds in the background and some leaves blowing in the wind behind the dude. It's not perfect, but it works. And then I kind of added just this little bit of dark to the left and this light to the right, just to kind of emphasize the light source and the shadow side. But yeah. All in all, this was surprisingly fun. Like, I wasn't expecting to have this much fun drawing in Grayscale and experimenting with values. However, it was surprisingly fun. And I think I'd like to do it again and, learn a little bit more about drawing with values. And I also think I would like to try and do this without line art next time, because I kept turning off the line art layer just to get a look at what it looked like without the line art. And I think the lighting just looked so much prettier without the line art. So maybe if I do this again, I will attempt to do it in a more painterly look without any line art to get in the way. Anyway, here is the finished Grayscale drawing. Let me know what you all think of it. Thank you all for watching. God bless.